Today we're going to go over how to solve some equations. Then you'll have a chance to practice solving some on your own. Let's take a look at the first problem. We have the equation x minus 6 equals 8. Well, this is going to be very similar to what we did in an earlier video about solving equations. We want to get the x by itself, so we need to get rid of the minus 6. To get rid of the minus 6, we have to do the opposite. We'll add 6. And remember, if we do something to one side of an equation, we have to do it to the other side. So to the other side of the equation, we'll also add 6. Now when we solve this out, the minus 6 and plus 6 cancel out. We're left with just an x on the left. And then on the right side, we have 8 plus 6. What does 8 plus 6 equal? 8 plus 6 is 14. And so we can say that x equals 14. So remember, whenever you have subtraction in an equation, you can get rid of it by doing the opposite, adding. Now I want to go over an equation with subtraction that's a little bit tricky. Let's look at the equation 5 minus x equals 7. First, I'm going to show you a common mistake people make. People see the 5 with the x and think, oh, first thing I have to do is get rid of the 5. I can get rid of a 5 by taking away 5 from both sides. When they solve this, they'll get that 5 minus 5 cancels out. They'll solve 7 minus 5 equals 2, and so they'll say that x equals 2. The problem is, this is not solving for x. This is solving for negative x. That's not what we want. And so while you could eventually get there using this method, there's a better way to solve this problem. In this equation, you actually want to start by canceling out the negative x. That's because what we want is a positive x, not a negative x. Now, as we went over, to get rid of a minus x, you just need to add x to both sides. Now, when you solve this equation, you get that minus x plus x cancels out, so you have just a 5 on the left. On the right side, you just have 7 plus x. Now all that's left is getting rid of the 7 on the right side. You can do that by just subtracting 7 from both sides. When you solve this, the 7 minus 7 cancels out. You're left with just an x. And on the left side, you get 5 minus 7, which equals what? 5 minus 7 is negative 2. And so you can say negative 2 equals x. Now let's do one of those tricky problems together. Let's look at the problem 7 minus x equals 3. Well, what is the first thing I should cancel out in this equation? Remember, we actually want to cancel out the negative x, because we want to find what positive x is. To get rid of the minus x, we just add x to both sides. When you solve this, what equation do you get? Well, minus x plus x cancels out. You're left with just a 7 on the left. On the right side, you're left with 3 plus x. Now all we need to do is get rid of the 3 on the right side. How can we get rid of the 3? Well, we could subtract 3. And we do that from both sides. When you solve this out, what do you get? Well, the 3 minus 3 on the right cancels out. So all that's left on the right is an x. And then on the left, 7 minus 3 gives you 4. So we can say that 4 equals x. Now it's time for you to solve one of these on your own. Let's start with a simpler one. Let's look at the equation x minus 6 equals 10. Solve this on your own. What does x equal? Well, remember, we have to get x alone, so we need to remove the minus 6. To get rid of a minus, you need to add, so we'll add 6. Do that to both sides. When you solve this, the minus 6 cancels out, and so you're left with just an x. On the right, you're left with 10 plus 6, which is 16. So in this problem, x equals 16. Now here is your last problem for the video. 4 minus x equals 10. What does x equal? Well, this one is the tricky one, where we start by getting rid of the minus x. To get rid of the minus x, just add x to both sides. When you solve this, minus x plus x cancels out, so you're left with just a 4. On the right side, you have 10 plus x. Now all that you have to do is get rid of the 10. Get rid of the 10 by taking away or subtracting 10. Do that from both sides. When you solve this, the 10 minus 10 cancels out, So on the right side, you just have an x. And on the left side, 4 minus 10 gives you negative 6. So in this equation, negative 6 equals x. From today, remember, you can remove subtraction from an equation by adding, and you can cancel variables just like any other number.